Another guest you've had in the past was Andrew Tate.
Sure.
I think you had him on in 19 before he became famous, infamous. I think you had him back on in 22.
That's right.
Right before he went to prison. What's Zuby's view on Andrew, and how does that all wrap up into, everything that happened in 20 and 21 and 22? Because it's not independent of those events, is it?
No. Yeah, so I first interviewed Andrew Tate January or February 2019. He was the fourth guest on my podcast.
Crazy.
So it was interesting when I did that first interview because, no one knew us to care. I had, between us on Twitter, we had under 100,000 followers between us, early 2019. And so, yeah, some people tuned in and found it funny or, thought it was comical, some of the statements that he made and things, ways that. And then, yeah, fast forward into the next couple of years and my profile grows, his profile grows, gigantically. And then late 2022, yeah, I did an interview with him in November 2022 in Dubai, before he went back to Romania, and that's when all the legal stuff
that was like December
kicked off with him. Yeah, it was December 2022, so about a month after I'd interviewed him. So I've met him in person a few times, both on camera and off. I've met him. I've met his brother Tristan, who's also been on my podcast as well. Personally speaking, they've been kind to me. I've never had on a personal level. Yeah, they've been gentlemen towards me. In terms of the legal stuff, I don't really want to I don't want to speak on it because again, I don't know what's really going on here. There's all these different narratives, and this has been going on for years now. There's conflicting information. It seems like it's going this way, and then something shifts, and it seems like it's going this way. I don't know, and I don't know them well enough to have some insider information on all of this. I'm kind of I just hope that the truth comes out. Yeah, I don't really know what more to say on it.
See, when I saw Tate getting really popular, first of all, I was like, who's
unless you mean the phenomenon around it.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking that.
Sure.
When I first saw him getting popular, first I was like, who's the dude with the sunglasses? And then the more I listened, my conclusion was we should look at this as maybe like a symptom of a problem, and that is that men are looking for someone to give them a different narrative than they're bad, and they're useless and they're evil, and that now there's someone actually speaking up, and something deep down inside, young men were saying, you know what, I need this right now. And maybe they were being pushed down by various morphs of the other issues we were talking about, whether it was, the wokeism. Did you see something similar?
100%.
Okay.
100%. And I thought that it was pretty stupid that more people weren't asking those questions. Because I saw a lot of people immediately wanting to jump on the bandwagon of condemnation without even attempting understanding. Sometimes people take pride. I think it's a form of virtue signaling. Sometimes people take pride and boast about not understanding something. And I don't think that's it's not a good thing, right? It's in the way you have people who are they take pride in the fact that they're oh, I don't know how anyone could vote for Trump. I'm like, well, that's a you problem. If you don't even have the empathy and the brain power to understand the perspective, there's a lot of things I don't agree with, but I can understand where people are coming from. I can understand how they reach their conclusions and make their decisions. But you have sometimes people don't even want to do that because I think perhaps because they think that by understanding it means that they're condoning or embracing the entirety of a message or the entirety of a person. The thing I found, perhaps like you, the thing I found most fascinating was what has happened socially and culturally that allows for this individual, Tate, in this circumstance, to amass such a following so quickly and so much influence, and it's resonating so much with people in certain demographics, because that doesn't happen in a vacuum. I found something similar, interesting years ago with the rise of Jordan Peterson, right? So I first came across his work in 2016, And I really, kind of watched his rise from a distance. And there was something also fascinating there of like, okay, there is a social and cultural, we're in a social and cultural zeitgeist that has allowed a 50-something-year-old university professor who is telling you stuff that, again, seems quite commonsensical, things that your father or perhaps your grandfather should have told you. Take responsibility, carry your load, look after yourself before you criticize the world, use your words carefully, stand up straight with your shoulders back. Like this is kind of old school wisdom, but it becomes this phenomenon. And all these media appearances, you remember the interview with Kathy Newman, which went viral, and all of this, and you're like, okay, there's something, we're in a particular social and cultural situation that has accelerated this. Same thing happened to me to a different degree, right? In a more sane time period, I don't think I would have attracted so many followers or people would have been so interested in listening to what I had to say. In fact, I know it because I've been putting stuff out there since about 2006, 2007. And none of it was deemed remotely controversial or even particularly interesting until the mid-2010s because the world had shifted. And then suddenly it was like, oh, who's that guy? He's talking a lot of sense. We need more people who are talking sense. So yeah, I think an environment was created particularly amongst young men, but it's not even just young men. I think people like to limit it to young men, perhaps, again, I think when people do that, it's a bit dismissive because I think they want to be like, oh, well, it's just these listless teenagers and guys in their early 20s.
Incels.
Who, they want to frame as if the whole audience is that so that they can kind of dismiss it. That's not true. There are millions of women around the world who like Andrew Tate's messages of all ages. I know this because I travel a lot and I talk to a lot of people and I've had some very interesting conversations.
How do you get out of a rat race? How do you create wealth not only for yourself, but also for the generations to come after?
I am absolutely amazed with the quality of companies that we're getting exposure to.
We go on to Zoom calls with the innovators and the folks who are building new applications in metaverse, blockchain, artificial intelligence, decentralized finance.
What's going on, everybody? Thumbs up if you can see me.
We are focusing on early stage investment.
And the quality of people that we're getting exposure to, whether it be Dan Tapiero with 1RT, Jason Ma from Open, Yatsu from Animoca.
It's been a phenomenal experience thus far. It has far exceeded my expectations.
We are focusing on cutting edge technologies.
I view it now as the best investment I've ever made. The upside I view is unlimited.
And as a retail investor, I would never get this exposure anywhere else outside of Investment Club.
See you in the Investment Club.
Conversations in this regard with people who people would not consider to be in his sort of typical fan base or follower base. All ages, both sexes. And, he does speak a lot of truths. And that has to be recognized. And you have to understand that, particularly, again, in the modern Western world, men have been emasculated in many ways. The genders have been confused in many ways. A lot of traditional masculine values or virtues and ways of embodying them have been labeled as negative or toxic or problematic or whatever. Men have been just browbeaten from so many different angles, from the media to academia to certain political narratives to just the excesses of feminism and so on. And men aren't particularly happy with the results. Interestingly, women are not particularly happy with the results. You have lots of men like, hey, what happened to all the good women? Lots of women, hey, what happened to all the good men? What happened to the strong men? What happened to the masculine men? At the same time, it's, I don't need a man, and you go girlism, and the future is female, and all this. And I think there was just something refreshing to a lot of people about someone who is just, someone could say that it's it's like an extreme manifestation of certain typical masculine qualities. But just the brazen saying what you want to say with not giving a crap about political correctness, not caring about using the right words or framing it the right way, or people have. I think there was just something so refreshing about that to a lot of people. So I think if I try to look somewhat objectively at a lot of the appeal of Andrew Tate, both now and previously, it's just like, hey, this is different. This is refreshing. And it could be an overcorrection in the other direction, but when things have been pushed so hard this way, you find a lot of people are okay with the overcorrection, because it's like, well, it's been pushed so far that way that just having that makes it feel kind of more in the middle. And I find like most people who like his stuff, I don't think I've ever met anyone who agrees with like everything he says, or who's just some like mindless. I think people like to frame his audience as just like, it's just these sort of mindless drones who will listen to everything that he says and then go and do it, right? And that's why in the UK in some schools, like you're not even allowed to say his name. And then of course everything from banning him from the platform, he's dangerous, he's influencing men to be misogynists and this and this and this. And in my experience, and certainly from people I've spoken to, most people who actually generally overall like his stuff or find it compelling, it's almost despite the things that are past a certain line. It's not because of them. It's like, oh, okay, I like this 80%, this 10 or 20%, yeah, I'm not really with that, but I like the 80 or 20 so much, or I find some truth in it, or I find some motivation in it. And also, again, if you want to talk about not existing in a vacuum, not a lot of people are doing it. So I see a lot of people who, particularly in the more Christian space, and certainly in the more conservative space, but certainly in the more Christian space, who are quite sort of bewildered by it all. But I don't think they sense that, at least in the public sphere, there are not a lot of unapologetic masculine role models. And it seems like in the absence of that, people would prefer, how would I put it? A lot of people would prefer an obviously imperfect manifestation of it than just like a limp-wristed, weak, like nothing. So that's the part where I think a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't understand that appeal. And it's one thing everyone's entitled to their own opinions and their beliefs, but I think it's always worth trying to comprehend. If something becomes a cultural phenomenon, it's always worth trying to understand why. What happened prior to that? What led up to it? What is the appeal here? What's being tapped into that people are finding so compelling? And I think that's actually a very interesting conversation. And perhaps sometimes people get so focused on the individual himself, rightly or for whether they're on the pro side or they're on the against side, that they lose sight of the wider social and cultural conversation. And I think there's a very interesting one to be had there, because I think both men and women, particularly the younger they are, we're just in a bit of a weird state. Things are weird still, and they have been weird. And I'd imagine that if I were like a 20 or 25-year-old young man growing up in the UK or the USA right now, I mean, given my family background, I think I'd personally be okay. But if I just see how millions of people are growing up, millions of people, quite literally with no fathers, often no father figures, oftentimes, their friends also don't have fathers in their lives, and there's all their teachers, like pretty much all primary school teachers are female. Even later than that, most teachers are female. They're being raised by their moms. There's a lot of feminine influence, and the absence of masculinity has an effect. It has an effect in all sorts of different ways, some measurable, some not measurable. And I think that young men, boys, teenagers, they're always gonna look for that somewhere. That's not a new phenomenon. That's not new at all. We all know that. So they're gonna look for it somewhere, and they're going to find it somewhere. So I think my message would be for the people out there and the people who are super loud about it, who have a a massive problem with Tate or, people like him. It's like, well, create and present and support what you consider better alternatives, right? You can scream and rant and rave all you want about not liking his influence or not liking this or not liking that, but I'm very much a fan of sounds corny, be what you want to see in the world, but also promote the things and the people that you like. If you spend all day, ranting and raving about, I don't like this, I don't like that person, I'm like, okay, cool. But what are you presenting that you think is a better alternative, and how are you going to make it compelling, and how are you communicating that to people? And I think a lot of people don't do that. They don't do that mind shift.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.